have been discussed by various authors, experts, and are presently considered to be the main suspects of the Black Dahlia murder. Walter Bailey, Norman Chandler, Leslie Dillon, Ed Burns, Joseph A. Dumas, Mark Hansen, George Hodel, George Knowlton, Robert M. Red Manley, Patrick S. O'Reilly, and Jackson Anderson Wilson. Those folks remain kind of at the top of the list. And as I mentioned, Dr. George Hodel, again, go Google. I'm sure we'll touch on a little bit of George Hodel, but go Google some of that stuff too. So Elizabeth Short's tragic demise, a young life of a lively, beautiful, and what seems to be a very promising young woman, was cut short, and ultimately not solved to this day, right? And will we ever know? Will we ever truly know what happened to Elizabeth Short? Some recent case developments. In early 2013, the Black Dahlia case returned to the headlines. An article in the San Bernardino Sun detailed a more recent investigation of the case that was conducted by a retired police sergeant, Paul Dosti, author Steve Hodel, and a police dog named Buster with a keen sense of smell, specifically that of decomposing flesh. So they had a cadaver dog, and Buster the cadaver dog. That sounds like a pretty good, like a kid's book. But basically, he was trained to detect rotting flesh. He was a cadaver dog. According to the Sun, the investigative team had uncovered incriminating evidence against Hodel's father. Again, we've said this a couple times, Dr. George Hill Hodel, who the younger Hodel has long believed to be the Black Dahlia killer. In February 2013, the team conducted after an extensive search of the doctor's home, where Buster had previously detected the scent of human decomposition in several areas around the basement. According to reports, following their search, soil samples that were taken from Dr. Hodel's home were reportedly submitted for lab testing. Other evidence against Hodel, Dr. George Hodel, according to his son, includes an old recording of a conversation between the doctor and an unknown person, in which Dr. Hodel allegedly stated, "Supposing I did kill the Black Dahlia, they couldn't prove it now. They can't talk to my secretary because she's dead." So Dr. George Hodel had an interesting life. Let's just say that. So he first came under suspicion for murder in 1945 following the death of his secretary, Ruth Spaulding, by a drug overdose. He was suspected of having murdered her in order to cover up his financial fraud. So he was billing patients for tests that were never performed, all that kind of sort of stuff, and to protect valuable secrets that he had obtained about police and politicians and patients, because he was basically conducting illegal abortions in his home. At about this time, Hodel had left briefly for China, where he worked for the United Nations Relief and Rehabilitation Administration. These events came to public attention in 2004. In late 1949, Hodel's teenage daughter, Tamar, accused him of incestuous sexual abuse and impregnating her, in which, after she had had a back alley abortion, he was acquitted after a widely publicized trial. There had been 3 witnesses present during and who participated in these sexual acts. 2 testified at the trial, and the 3rd recanted her earlier testimony and refused to come forward. The theory being that Hodel had threatened her into silence. The trial caused Tamar to look like a liar who had fabricated these abuse allegations for attention. So we mentioned too that he quickly became a suspect in Elizabeth Short's murder in 1949 after this sexual abuse trial, because he was now a known suspected sex criminal, and those folks were being investigated as part of this crime. And as we mentioned, the DA's tapes that recorded him saying, "Supposing I did kill the Black Dahlia, they can't prove it now. They can't talk to my secretary because she's dead. They thought there was something fishy. Anyway, now they have figured it out. Killed her. Maybe I did kill my secretary." Hodel was also interviewed as a suspect in the nearby June 1949 murder of Louise Springer, the air quotes here, Green Twig murder, though evidence to support this accusation was not publicly available until June 2018. In October of 1949, Hodel's name was mentioned in a formal written report to the grand jury as one of the 5 prime suspects in Short's murder, but none of the named suspects were submitted to the grand jury for consideration for indictment, as the investigation was still ongoing by April 1950. So by late 1950. It appeared as if they had gathered enough evidence to charge Hodel and was about to arrest him for Short's murder. When Hodel, I keep calling him Hodel, when Hodel again left the United States, he obtained a degree in psychiatry and counseled prisoners at the territorial prison in Hawaii for about 3 years, then moved on to the Philippines, where he started a new family and appears to have remained until 1990, finally dying in 1999 in San Francisco without charges ever being filed. But as we mentioned, his son Steve has written that he believes Hodel re-entered the United States multiple times each year, and specifically believed that he returned to commit more murders and then basically returned to the Philippines. So not only does his son believe that he killed the Black Dahlia, but he believes that he was basically just a prolific serial killer that was operating out of the Philippines, returning to the United States here and there to kind of sneak in, do a little killy McKill, and then take off. There was also some thought with that he had committed murders just kind of all over the place. There's some eyes on him as possibly being the, or at least involved in, the Zodiac killer. There's some idea about him being the lipstick killer. There's some ideas of him being involved in the 1967 Jigsaw murders in Manila as well. So if George Hodel was even lived up to a quarter of these accusations, he would be one of the most prolific serial killers in history. And not only that, one of the most prolific serial killers in history that got away with it. So George Hodel lived from 1907 to 1999, ultimately meeting his end in San Francisco, California at the age of 91. So again, super, I can't say interesting. I was going to say interesting past, but just with the being on the suspect list for multiple serial killer murders, being accused of sexual assault by his own daughter, being suspected of killing his own secretary, was George Hodel, Dr. George Hodel, the murderer of the Black Dahlia. Could he have potentially been the Zodiac killer, the lipstick killer? Could he have been responsible for the Jigsaw murders as well? I'll let you decide that. Dig into it. There's a lot out there. There's a lot to dig through. You can be the judge for yourself. The saddest part about all this is that, especially when you hear the descriptions of who Elizabeth Short was, this lively, beautiful, nice, by all accounts, kind young woman that everyone seemed to like, that would just light up a room, any room that she found herself in, having her life tragically cut short when she had such a promising future ahead of her in Hollywood, and I'm sure in many, many other things. That is the saddest part of the Black Dahlia murder. The fact that she was found in such a gruesome state, tortured, cut clean in half with near surgical precision, and dumped in a vacant lot after being washed and basically drained of all of her blood. That is a really fucking scary story. Have you had a really fucking scary experience? Have you seen a ghost? Have you been on a macabre adventure? Would you like to share it on air? Would you like for us to tell that story? Or you just have something horrid that you would like for us to talk about? Head over to pellhorsemediaco.com. Use the contact form to let us know all about it. Make sure that you subscribe. New episodes come out every single Friday. We look forward to continuing this creepy, crawly, morbid, macabre, and grotesque adventure with you, the listener. We love you, and we will see you soon. Thank you for joining us today on our trip into the dark. We hope that you join us again next week for all things horror, all things macabre, all things grotesque, here on Really Fucking Scary.